Welcome, everybody, to My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. I just want to say, that wish I was here statement always refers to, our desire to be so present in our lives that we're enjoying the journey of doing life in whatever context, whatever aspect. But there are times when I feel very tempted to respond to the wish I was here by just, by saying, I am here today. And so, welcome to my co host Shanaaz and also Julia, who is always in the background doing all kinds of things supporting this clubhouse event. So, Shanaaz is going to be taking us, or is going to be presenting the topic today. And yes, it's always like a present for me, it's like unwrapping something. No forewarning, wondering, what genius topic are we going to be discussing today? And by the way, it's not genius topic, it's also genius delivery. So, Shanaaz, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Jacques. And now I'm always saying that you've put me under pressure now, but I hope I can deliver. So, so I was kind of toying with two ideas, but I decided to kind of combine them and add some nuances to an age-old topic that we talk about. And I've entitled it How Low Self-Esteem Shows Up in Your Life and What You Can Do About It. And as you were saying, that we're talking about being fully present, and that title, Wish You Were Here, and we want people to live fulfilled, high quality lives. And I think that what I've often discovered in my interaction with people in general, not only in my practice or even at varsity, what I find is that there's a large number of people who suffer from low self esteem. But the really interesting thing about this is that some of them are not aware that they suffer from low self esteem. So I think that, so what I thought about was looking at, I mean, some of these people that I engage with, they come across as really confident. Um, but when I've known them for a long time, or I engage with them on a sort of, get to know them in depth because of the type of interaction, what I discover is that there are some doubts and there's some things around, aspects around low self esteem. So this was inspired kind of by some people that I've met. However, it was also inspired, you're going to laugh, by a reality show. So a colleague and I love, it helps us unwind. So we love Love is Blind. It's a reality show, for those who don't know, including you, Jacques. And what happens is that couples who are unmarried, no, sorry, they're not couples, that's another show, but it's singles who pitch up, and they are placed in and they are placed in a pod. It's called a pod, so they can't see each other, and they date each other for about 4 weeks or 3 weeks, and then at the end of this, I know you're going to laugh, and everyone tells us, and we know that, but it's good relaxation. They are expected to get married, like they choose a partner. Yes, you want to say something, Jacques? Go ahead.
I just wanted to tell you I love this show. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, right. I'm glad. So, but it's yeah. So how come I've chosen this? So one of our administrators in our office, my colleague and I, who love watching the show, we were talking about it, and my other colleague said, she would love it if we could do a panel on it. Because we were speaking about one particular contestant, and one or two who we feel it was quite insecure, and despite the fact that she comes across as a very confident person, what we've started to see over this period of time was low self-esteem. But so that was the one aspect that kind of inspired me. Another aspect was I've known a friend who has always come across as very confident, and I've seen her in some different circumstances, and it hadn't quite struck me about her low self esteem, and how low self esteem can actually prevent you, particularly when you are unaware of it. So, what we find is that a lot of people are actually unaware of when they have low self esteem. And so that's what I also want to mention. Today I'm going to look at signs of low self-esteem, and then just explain it a little bit. So as I said, so I've been inspired by some genuine interactions with people that I really care about, and then also reality TV, and kind of I hope that everyone will be able to get something out of it. So what is low self-esteem really? What they actually say, which is what I want to point out, is that it's essentially how we feel about ourselves. However, how we feel about ourselves both at the conscious and unconscious levels. And what I have discovered is that a lot of us are aware of the conscious levels, when of our self-esteem at a conscious level. So for me, the I'm aware of how I lack confidence in physical abilities in sport, in that arena in my life. I'm also sometimes aware that there are times when I've got to do a presentation about maybe a particular topic that I am not too confident about. So those are kind of the areas that I'm very aware that I'm not confident about. However, there are also unconscious levels. So how I feel about myself at an unconscious level, meaning I'm not really aware of it. And that my behavior and how I respond to situations, particularly even how I react to situations, actually is an indication that there are areas that we need to work on regarding our self esteem. So, and what you actually discover is that how we perceive ourselves, even at an unconscious level, affects the way we navigate life and affects how we enjoy life and how present we are. Also, then understanding signs of low self esteem and recognizing when those patterns show up in our life is then a big opportunity to create positive change. So in other words, we want to create change. So the more aware I am of the unconscious levels of low self-esteem in my life, the more tools I have and opportunities I have to change it. And so low self-esteem can show up in a number of ways, right? It can manifest itself in a number of ways, and these can include, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. It can include lacking boundaries, people pleasing, talking badly about yourself, or even making those jokes about yourself, feeling unworthy, and basically, if you have any of these, like generally you have some low self-esteem, but not everybody has low self-esteem, right? So we can't just assume everyone. It's about, the thing about it is how we know and you can identify. So is when these negative feelings last for an extended period of time, right? So, like I said, I can have it on occasions, but it doesn't necessarily affect all areas of my life. And so, what I have discovered, and when I'm thinking of the reality show, there was one character, Chelsea, who came across as very confident this season, but absolute insecurity and low self esteem once she actually met the person that she was intended to get engaged to, or who she got engaged with, essentially. And you actually kind of see how she goes along and sabotages this relationship, and you see how she responds to different triggers and situations. And so, what we are saying then is that poor self esteem, if we do not address it, it can sabotage our attempts at success. It can sabotage, we, without realizing it, we become, and I think that Jacques has spoken about saboteurs, we become saboteurs of our own success, not only in our career, but in our personal relationships as well. And my interaction with this particular friend of mine is that it's absolutely done some, I don't know if I just was not aware. And I think maybe as coaches or as leaders, sometimes we are not aware when those in my, in my context, those I teach, those I engage with, have low self-esteem. And it kind of comes at me quite, it was quite a surprise. And I just realized that I haven't really thought that some of these things could actually be signs of low self-esteem. So for example, for us who are coaches and leading people, when, or in our own lives, when we notice that people are people pleasing, that is usually a sign of low self-esteem. And what they say is that people with low self-esteem, we they tend to be passive, or they tend to be passive aggressive instead of standing up for themselves. And what also then kind of happens is that these people, when they are people pleasers, it's really challenging then also for them to be themselves. And so, because when you're struggling with low self-esteem, and you people pleasing, they very connected. What it also means is that you really struggle to know yourself and be yourself. And when we are struggling to know ourselves, our authentic selves, and what brings us pleasure and joy, it's then very difficult to pursue the things which bring us joy and pleasure. And so it's then really important, um, if you are a people pleaser to a certain extent, or whether this is, something chronic in your life, it's important that you look at the self-esteem. Another area which is very obvious, I think, is that when you experience, or when we observe, or experience self-doubt, so second guessing ourselves. And obviously second guessing ourselves is natural, but when you start to constantly seek the opinions of others rather than trusting, your own judgment. It's about the constant seeking, maybe, of reassurance from others, or constantly seeking the opinions of others. This can be related to your self esteem. And so, what I find is that I have a group of students who will constantly come and email me about every little thing. And I kind of realized that it's not as that this actually has to do with their self-esteem. And I've noticed this about this one particular friend who's about my age as well, constantly kind of asking opinions. And you actually see this in Love is Blind as well, where they constantly needing Chelsea, constantly needing affirmation, constantly needing, in a sense, attention from the guy that she was engaged with. And this kind of shows again the connection with low self-esteem. Then what is was classic Chelsea in this case was how needy and unworthy she felt. And so maybe what happens with these people, or when people experience low self-esteem to that extent that they need to address it, um, it can be that they feel that they don't deserve love, praise, or even an increase at work. So you find that it eventually starts to extend to all areas of one's life. And when we feel, or people feel, that they don't deserve love, or that they don't deserve praise, or even an increase at work, then you know that it's actually related to how much they value themselves and their abilities. And so, what they say is that the psychologists actually say, from where I get the information, they say that a lack of inner worth is driven by a set of beliefs that people, that they feel they are no good, a feeling of insignificance, or believe that they have nothing of value to offer. And so I think when I'm engaging with people who I can pick up immediately, then I need to kind of note that maybe this is something that we need to work on. And they say, most people tend to also seek things outside of themselves to make them feel worthy. And so, what the psychologist D. Roberts, they say is that it's important to remember that self esteem is an inside job and directly correlated with joy. I'll say that again. It's important to remember that self esteem is an inside job and directly correlated with joy. So, in other words, um, yes, we can seek after careers and relationships, success and power. But if I have low self esteem that I need to address none of those things, even a fiance who is declares his love for the person, is engaged, and is completely transparent and open, that not even that will make could have made Chelsea feel any better with herself. And you can see that despite then having what she wanted, she achieved, in a sense, she achieved what she had set out to do at the start of the season of this reality show, but yet that didn't satisfy her. And you can see that it's because internally she was struggling with her self-esteem, and that then kind of affected her relationship. And I can see that this with a friend of mine as well, that no matter how much I reassure her and I support her as she's engaging with this challenge, she's unemployed currently, it really is about an inside job, and she will need to do some work on herself. And no matter how, so you can have a successful career, you can have power, and you can have a relationship, but if you have low self-esteem, all of those areas will be affected. And so typically, when you nobody with low self-esteem, whether that is at a conscious level, but I find that particularly at an unconscious level, that people are not aware that they struggle. The reason why they're struggling with relationships is often around their self esteem. And some of the people that I've engaged with and work with often feel that they don't deserve, they're not aware that what they are saying and communicating is that I'm not worthy of love or this relationship, or that the other person is, I'm not worthy to be with this person. And I think when we think about it, there was a time that maybe Chelsea felt that she was not worthy to be in this relationship with Jimmy. And then what happened is she sabotages it by attacking him and accusing him of a number of things. And that's the passive aggressiveness that comes out. And so what they say is that when you experience challenges with intimacy, trusting partners, and establishing strong personal boundaries, then you know that that person is struggling with low self esteem. And they say that if people don't address this, they're more than likely to stay in a one sided or abusive or codependent relationship. And so you can see when you have I have when you watch these shows, particularly Love is Blind, they will always the I find that some of the men or some of the women will constantly say, why do I always end up in this relationship where he does this or they do that or they cheat on me or that. And that is usually a sign that there's something going on for the person around the self esteem. And again, it's about working on yourself because you actually need to have really good self esteem to engage in a healthy relationship. And I think I think a lot of people struggle with that or they don't understand that. And so I think often in this chat or podcast, we've often spoken about negative self talk and those beliefs. So I'm not going to go into detail about that, but and also comparing yourself with others. When you're comparing yourself to the extent that you cannot really, that it becomes a problem. The other thing that I want to talk about, then, just as we kind of finish off the last couple of minutes, is so how do you grow confidence? And what they suggest is that low self-esteem has deep roots and it actually requires a commitment to becoming aware. So what the psychologist recommends is that they say get real with yourself, learn about what is making you feeling less confident and change those patterns. And they say that it's important to explore the messages that you send to yourself, that about your core beliefs, and then also how to change those messages, and how you create new ways of understanding and perceiving the world around you. And so what I also wanted to kind of talk about is, they also mention self love, and they say that self love is the foundation of self esteem. And so they talk, but the other thing that they talk within self love about is they say that forcing yourself to focus on the bright side of things during challenges can actually be a form of toxic positivity. And this fascinated me a little bit. And what toxic positivity is and toxic, positive thinking is when you kind of force yourself, you deny actually what is going on, and then you force yourself to look at the bright side. So I've got some toxic positivity self statements they mention that we need to avoid. So they suggest that we avoid saying, I just won't think about it. What they'd like you to do is say, that did happen to me, and I'm allowed to feel angry and sad or confused about it. The other statement to avoid, which is also, a positive toxic statement, can always be worse. So they say, admit to yourself that things are really tough right now. Another thing that we sometimes, or people sometimes say, just smile, then I'll feel better. And what they recommend you say is that I'm having a really bad day today, but it's okay not to be okay right now. And these statements are all about like how we think positive self-talk, and focusing on positive things can help. While it can help, denying when you deny the reality of your situation, that is actually problematic. So I just want to read a couple of additional ones. They say, I choose to be happy. No, you need to also tell yourself it's also okay to cry, right? Because what you can find is, if you force yourself to be positive when you're not really feeling it to a certain extent, it can actually lead to low self esteem, because you're starting to feel ashamed of yourself because you're supposed to be feeling good and you're not feeling good. It can also be a risk to anxiety and depression. So, a real balance with these things is needed. Another thing that people often say is, everything will work out if I stay positive. And what the psychologists recommend is saying, it's hard when things don't go the way that I've planned, but I've given it my best effort. And then a final sort of toxic positive statement is, I'm just grateful for what I have. And what you can say instead is, which I really like, it's really hard to be positive right now, and that's okay. And all of this is really about, sometimes we can overdo the going to be positive, and that's not about the reality of our situation. And I think we have a positive, like, the self-help um kind of trend going on right now. But it's also to remember that we, in order to really address our low self-esteem, or areas in our lives that we need to work on, we also have to be realistic. And what they kind of say is that if we do have poor self-esteem, the thing is, you don't have to feel worse about it. We can figure out the causes. We can speak and practice self-love, be kind to ourselves, forgive ourselves, and also talk it over with a professional. And usually professionals can help you see the world differently around you, and help you also face some of the realities. They also say that it can be hard work and it can take time, but boosting your confidence and your self esteem will definitely help you live a more fulfilled life. And so I just want to encourage you then to kind of think about your low self esteem and the areas that you need to improve on. Because, as it says, we'll actually just live a more fulfilled life when we address some of those things. We don't have to live with areas in our life that cause us shame and embarrassment, or cause us to feel bad about ourselves. We can actually address it. And when we address it, we'll just live a much happier and more fulfilling life. So, thank you. That's me.
Well, who would have thought? Somebody laughed at me when I told them I watched Love is Blind. um,
I'm so
yes,
amazed
but
that you watch it. So, we can
no,
chat
I
when I
do.
see you again.
Oh yes, of course we can, and compare notes, and the reason I watch it is I think it's a fascinating study of human behavior and what sits at the heart of attraction. And I like the fact that it's a social experiment of some sort, obviously dramatized for viewership, but real people reacting in real ways. And yes, so the quote that I'm going to keep with me is that self esteem is an inside job and directly correlated with joy, because I think it so feeds into our theme. And the cues, it's quite interesting. We can all sit and assess where we are at as functionally engaged people in our lives, in our careers, in our businesses. But I never thought that toxic positivity could actually, give us some clues as far as this unconscious low self esteem levels that we are sporting within ourselves, and to start noticing that, especially by the words we are using, the phrases that we are using. And I think, in a way, and maybe something that Shanaaz, you can address at some later stage if you want, because actually this whole adage of you need to fake it, while you make it, or fake it to make it, or whatever the case might be. I think some of that spills over into this area, and yeah, fascinating topic. Thank you, Shanaaz.
Thank you, Jacques. Yes, I agree with you. And it's about, and so that's often our concern as mental health practitioners, that while these things and motivational speakers and everything is really good, but there are like a small group of people who may need further input, and that it may possibly lead to denying, what you're actually feeling. And when we deny what we feel, then we actually become ashamed, like, what's wrong with me that I'm not feeling positive in this difficult situation? So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Shanaaz. Riveting. And for somebody out there listening to this, we don't just want to challenge you, but in a way is bring awareness, self-awareness to yourself that these issues can exist, and use this to examine yourself. Do some self-reflection, but don't judge yourself. And then also become aware of your self-speak. What is it that you're professing? And therefore how that tends to affect you in the long run. So yes, it's correlated with joy, that a strong self-esteem will bring you. If you lack that in that area, start looking there. So until further ado, we will chat to each other again next week. And Shanaaz, enjoy the rest of the week. Until next time.
Thank you, Jacques. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.